Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, picture this. It's Monday morning, August 21st, 1911. The French capital of Paris is absolutely bustling. People are rushing off to work, going about their day, completely unaware that a massive true crime story is quietly unfolding literally right under their noses. At the famous Louvre Museum, we are looking at what's going to become the most sensational art heist in human history, driven by one man's incredibly bold vision.
Okay, let's dive into this timeline, because the sheer audacity of this crime is exactly what makes it so legendary. The thieves, three guys, had actually spent the entire previous night hiding silently inside the museum corridors, just waiting. By early morning, they slipped out of the building, clutching an incredibly important piece of Louvre property wrapped tightly in just a simple blanket. And by 8:45 a.m., they hopped on a train at a nearby station and just vanished. Poof! The whole world was entirely unaware that these men had just pulled off the impossible on Monday, August 21st, 1911.
And here's the kicker. They didn't just snag any old painting off the wall. They stole the Mona Lisa. To really wrap your head around the massive stakes of this bold museum heist, consider its modern estimated value. We're talking almost $1 billion. That's billion with a B. But to truly understand the mastermind's motive and why this specific ultra-valuable asset was targeted, we need to unravel the secrets hidden inside the masterpiece itself.
So, to understand why this specific billion-dollar asset was the target, we really have to look at the woman in the frame. For centuries, people fiercely debated who she actually was. One wild theory in 1987 even used digital tools to claim Leonardo da Vinci just painted a portrait of himself as a woman. No way, right? Well, thanks to extensive archival research, we know for sure she was Lisa Gherardini. And her names evolved across languages in a super fascinating way. Traditionally, Madonna Lisa meant Madame Lisa. The word Madonna was shortened to Mona, dropping an N in English to become Mona Lisa. Now, on the flip side, she married a Florence silk trader named Francesco Giocondo. In Italian, Giocondo means lighthearted or cheerful. The French translated this bright, cheerful surname to La Gioconde, which, fun fact, is how she's officially identified in the Louvre today.
Now, all this brings up a huge question regarding our heist. Why on earth was a purely Italian masterpiece sitting in a French museum to begin with? Well, this historical timeline is absolutely crucial. Da Vinci began the painting in Florence around 1503, likely to celebrate the birth of Lisa's second son. But fast forward to 1516, King Francis I invited the legendary artist to live in France. Da Vinci actually took the unfinished painting with him across the border, and he was constantly tweaking and modifying it until he died in 1519. The king kept it in his royal collection until 1797, when the French Revolution finally moved it into the hands of the Louvre Museum.
Honestly, if you walked in to steal this billion-dollar asset, you'd probably be shocked by its size. Measuring just 77 by 53 centimeters, it is incredibly compact. It's roughly the size of a standard poster, which is exactly how our bold thief was eventually able to just tuck it right under his clothes. But back in Renaissance Italy, this small canvas was completely groundbreaking. It was literally the very first painting of its era to use a half-length portrait to focus so intimately on a single person. It's a tight framing technique that, we use constantly in modern photography today.
And the physical makeup of this artwork is just as unique, which, by the way, severely complicated the theft. Da Vinci didn't paint on paper or cloth canvas like you might expect. He painted on heavy Italian poplar wood. This meant our thief couldn't just slice the canvas out of its frame and roll it up. He had to literally carry a rigid wooden board out of the museum. Plus, because wood absorbs moisture, it had to be heavily coated in protective varnish. Over the centuries, that heavy varnish caused bleaching, creating the dull yellowish-brown tint we see today. In fact, it is so yellowed that a medical professor once humorously diagnosed Lisa with having high cholesterol. But originally, the colors were remarkably bright and vibrant.
And this brilliantly illustrates Da Vinci's absolute genius as a painter, specifically his perfection of a technique called sfumato. Basically, sfumato is the art of blurring outlines and blending colors together, so there are literally no hard borders. Just look at how Mona Lisa's hair seamlessly melts right into the Arno Valley landscape behind her. It's like a giant puzzle where the pieces just blend together perfectly. This exact technique of soft, shadowy blending is the secret engineering behind her famously mysterious expression. To achieve that expression, Da Vinci's dedication practically bordered on madness. He spent countless nights in a Florence hospital, literally dissecting the skin from human corpses just to study the tiny, intricate nerves of the face. He even cross-referenced his findings with animal anatomy.
He wrote, "The muscles which move the lips are more numerous in man than in any other animal. Notice whether the muscle that raises the nostrils of the horse is the same." I mean, wow, that intense biological obsession went straight into every single one of his brushstrokes. He then combined all this anatomy with deep research into human optics to actively trick our retinas. Here's exactly how the optical illusion of her smile works step by step. When you look directly at her lips, the center of your retina, the fovea, picks up the flat physical details. It looks like a straight, serious line. But when you look away, say up at her eyes or forehead, your peripheral vision takes over. Your periphery is highly sensitive to shadows, so it picks up the dark sfumato shading at the corners of her mouth. Suddenly, she appears to be smiling. The smile actively engages you, but literally only when you stop trying to focus directly on it. It's a real game changer in art history.
So, with so much singular genius poured into this piece of wood, and the whole world hunting for it after the brazen theft, a wild question emerged in 1914. Are there actually two Mona Lisas out there? Now, this isn't just a fun conspiracy theory to entertain ourselves with. Not at all. This question actually pivots us toward a shocking discovery made by a novelist living near London named John R. Eyre.
Looking at the Louvre version we all know on the left, we see an older face, that famously tricky smile, and no columns in the background. But over on the right, the Isleworth Mona Lisa reveals a face that is visibly younger, the expression is pretty straightforward and clear, and importantly, she is framed by two distinct columns. What's absolutely incredible here is that another legendary artist, Raphael, actually made a rough pen and ink sketch of the Mona Lisa way back in 1504, and get this, his sketch perfectly matches the Isleworth version, columns and the whole shebang. This second canvas is actually 3.5 inches longer and 5 inches wider. The Mona Lisa Foundation has been deeply investigating it since 2010. Theory A suggests this was simply Da Vinci's earlier experimental version, which completely explains why she looks younger. Theory B proposes that Da Vinci painted the highly detailed face and hands, but maybe an inferior artist in his workshop finished off the background. But hey, while the art world continues to debate the existence of this second painting, let's snap back to the undeniable reality of our main mystery. Who exactly pulled off that bold 1911 heist?
So the crucial point is, the mastermind wasn't some suave international super spy dropping from the ceiling. Nope. It was a man named Vincenzo Peruggia, who was actually an employee right there at the Louvre. Remember how we talked about Da Vinci bringing the painting over to France in 1516? Well, Vincenzo was a staunch Italian nationalist. He firmly believed that because Leonardo was an Italian genius, his greatest masterpiece rightfully belonged on Italian soil, not hanging up in a French museum. In his mind, he felt he was simply taking it home. But as it turns out, stealing it was the easy part. Actually trying to fence a billion-dollar masterpiece? That was the real problem. For 2 whole years, from 1911 to 1913, Vincenzo just hid this rigid wooden painting in his tiny apartment. Meanwhile, detectives worldwide were frantically searching for it. Eventually, Vincenzo just grew impatient. In late 1913, he traveled to Florence, Italy, and tried to sell it to an art dealer named Giovanni Paggi. Well, Giovanni instantly grew suspicious, checked the official stamp on the back of the wood, and realized he was being offered literally the most wanted item on earth. Vincenzo was caught and, surprisingly, sentenced to just 6 months in prison for pulling off the greatest art heist in history. The painting was triumphantly returned to the Louvre on January 4, 1914.
Vincenzo's bold, low-tech heist permanently changed museum security forever. Today, as a direct result of his actions, the masterpiece sits inside a hyper-secure enclosure behind thick, bulletproof glass. And because it's painted on that super delicate poplar wood we talked about, it requires extreme climate-controlled conditions to survive. The humidity is strictly maintained at exactly 50%, and the temperature is never allowed to fluctuate outside 18 to 21 degrees Celsius. They take no chances anymore.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the ultimate irony of this entire story. Vincenzo Peruggia's bold museum heist didn't just steal an artwork. It practically created the icon as we know it today. Believe it or not, before 1911, the Mona Lisa was highly respected by art enthusiasts, sure, but it wasn't famous among the common public at all. It was the frantic global headlines of the heist, the haunting blank space on the museum wall, and the multi-year worldwide manhunt that absolutely catapulted that mysterious smile into the cultural stratosphere. The idea spread like wildfire.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder. Da Vinci poured decades of genius, optical science, and grueling anatomy into that 77-centimeter piece of wood. But would the Mona Lisa actually be the #1 famous painting in the world today if Vincenzo Peruggia had never pulled off his bold heist? It's a striking reminder of how true crime and history can fundamentally shape how we view art. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep your eyes open. You never know what mysteries are hiding right in plain sight.